When are we heading out of the Spider-Verse? And I'm back at it again with another film review, and this is going to be a different kind of one because this is a review for a movie that came out half a year ago, literally to this day, at least from where I'm recording. Because at the time, I didn't have the time to make this review, and I thought I might just let it go and just focus on what I was doing at the time. But since I've been kind of on a streak of reviews recently, I was like, hey, I can go back to actually do a review on a movie that I saw and never covered and would have liked to cover, and since I have the opportunity, might as well go for it. Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse, the sequel to 2018 Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. We're in this one, Miles Morales, now more of an established Spider-Man, figures out what it takes to be a Spider-Man, figures out who he is, tries to understand how to help others, while also having to travel the multiverse alongside his friend Gwen Stacy, finding a new society of spider people tasked in guarding the multiverse, while also at the same time having to deal with a new villain, which they thought of as a joke first, but then turns out to be a bigger threat than any of them imagined to be, being the Spot. What I think of it? I loved it. I know it's just pretty late to say, but I'm just treating it as if I just saw it for the first time because I gave it some time to think. But so far, I still think it's pretty great. I still slightly prefer the first movie a little more, but this one does do some things better than the last one, which I'll get to later. But many have already sung their praises. I really enjoyed this. It's a fantastic sequel that's not just good in its own right, but also stands almost close to toe-to-toe with its original, and in some parts, it surpasses it. And yeah, I know this one had many delays, and it came out almost 5 years after this one, but I guess considering what we have now, I say it's pretty much worth it. Very, very worth it, because I wouldn't trade it for anything else. But the story, I did mention, well, my plot description was pretty vague. It's because there's multiple stories. Not just Miles, but also Gwen gets a lot more screen time and development in this one. While also having to deal with other spider people, which I'll get to later. But it all blends so well that it feels like one story with smaller stories rather than smaller stories trying to become a big story. But anyway, not to get to the praises, because man, I have a lot. For sure, the animation is worth going to the theater late, but still, it's worth seeing again and again, just for the animation and little things you'll see in the background, little details. It's very rewatchable, just on the visual standpoint, just to catch everything that the animators put their heart and soul into. And not only it improves on the cel-shaded comic book 2D, 3D art style, but also has different types of ways to innovate by having other art styles, which they take advantage of by exploring the multiverse, which its location having different animation styles, and also some characters with different animation styles that move and are animated differently, that are distinct but don't feel distracting. Because wow, they didn't just stagnate what they already had. They just went above and beyond. Makes me wonder what's gonna come next. Because wow. And for the characters, for now, I'll just focus on the main characters because I'll get to the side ones later on. Of course, with me saying how great this movie is, of course the characters are gonna be great themselves. Miles was already a one-of-a-kind character in the last one, and I'm glad that they were to expand on him even more. With him already getting used to being a Spider-Man and witnessing all the struggles that others have had, while also having some new struggles of his own, with his family, Gwen, the other spider people, and anything else that unexpected that comes his way. And of course the voice performance gives him a heart and soul that for sure is going to resonate, has already resonated with a lot of people. And Gwen, like I already said, had more development here than she's had before, and you really get to understand her psyche more. Man, it's just I'm speechless. What can I say? Uh, she. I'm going to move on. I don't want to stick in the same spot. The musical score is fantastic. The first one already had one. This one is also just as good, and it adds more distinctiveness because of it also exploring different universes with their own styles. Might as well go for different musical styles too, because it feels like every bit has its own identity, but flows seamlessly as one big picture. And as a result, you get this massive concoction of like instrumentations and sound effects that stimulates the ear and helps the experience feel more immersive than it possibly could have. And not just with the animation, but music and sound too. And the humor, it's a Phil Lord and Chris Miller production. Of course, it's gonna be hilarious. The humor is gonna be very out there. It's gonna be very creative and wild and imaginative. Of course, some meta humor, as one would expect from them, but never feels out of place or just feels like into like a full-on meta comedy like Deadpool or She-Hulk. But yeah, like it's for supposedly being some of the best superhero movies out there. The meta-ness never feels like it detracts. It just feels like it adds and gives it a style of its own. Because who would have thought those two doing two superhero movies would end up this great? Even though I guess they didn't direct them, they just co-wrote and produced them, but still, it feels like they're movies, which I guess I'm not okay. Of course, with this being a sequel, the emotional stakes have to feel as impactful as it did before, and it does. I'll get to what those stakes are, but this movie has the task of balancing a lot, and I really mean a lot, because this movie is like almost 2 hours and a half, which is rare for animated movies to be this long and to feel this grand, but it never feels weighed down. Keep going and going and going, almost never stops, aside from like the emotional touching moments where you have to slow down, but just like what a masterclass of pacing, especially when so much has to juggle, because I feel for everyone, like, and there is no weak character anywhere, even those with like minimal screen time. Well, okay, I guess some of want to say weak, but not as good, but damn. And of course, it uses its multiverse concept to its fullest by exploring how some characters can act some way, how some can act another, what they could have, what they didn't have, what they should have, what they think they should have, and what they think they should get. Also exploring their own mortalities and fates and what's destiny. How can you make your own story? How can you do your own thing? Do you do other people's things? Do you listen? Do you act? So many questions. Doesn't give all the easy answers, but it just feels so satisfying. Like just the imagination of the writing definitely benefits to its visuals and vice versa. Of course, this being a sequel to the first is going to have some a good soundtrack, and the soundtrack is good. Some songs are better than that, and as usual, I prefer some songs over this one, but it's a decent soundtrack. There's some good songs that add to the emotion, some that could have been stronger, but overall, it's not a problem. And the other big improvement that I can say this has over the other one is the villain, because Kingpin wasn't bad in the first movie, but he was decent and I guess agreed on to be a weak link in an otherwise strong plot. Well, this one, Spot, he's comedic for like half of it, but then gets more menacing and kind of terrifying. They really take advantage of the animation to make him unique and dynamic. And you feel for him because of what's happened to his past, but then when he's like just acting like a little weirdo, it gives him a bit of comic relief that makes you want to watch him more and listen to what he has to say. Even though what he's doing is obviously very bad, but hey, he ain't a villain of the week anymore, and I give praise to the people in charge to make him as memorable as he could have been. And by default, this is already the most epic Spider-Man ever made. Like, in terms of scale, it already surpasses the last movie, and definitely Spider-Man No Way Home as well, because, oh boy, like I said, it does a lot. And it balances supremely well. Well, surprisingly well, especially with this being like a very delayed sequel. And also with Into being Miles' story, this one, Miles and Gwen's, or feel like co-leads. It feels like it's both of their stories. And even Gwen has been having a really long prologue in the opening, because it takes a while for us to get to Miles. But yeah, like I just saying what happened. I gotta give the kudos, give them the credit they deserve, because yeah, holy moly, these kinds of dynamics are very rare to see, because where they both want to be with each other as whether friends or lovers or whatever happens later on, but also know the dangers that could happen from being together. So is that constant push and pull dynamic of like, should they do something about it? Should they be on it? Well, should they try to fix? Or not fix, should they try to make their relationship stronger? Should they do something about it? Or do they just like avoid it and try to find a way to not deal with it, while also potentially making things worse? Because with everything that's at stake, but then their appreciation and admiration for each other they have is like, what's more worth it? Or like, what is the price to be paid here? I did mention that opening with Gwen earlier. It's very long. I guess that's one of my minor nitpicks with it. Is like I feel it went on for too long. But I think that was the only time the pacing kind of dragged. There's some bits in there that'll feel a little wonky, but I think at this point every movie does. I think there's no movie these days with perfect pacing. Like, at least some bits that feel too long or too short by like a smidge. But at this point, unless the pacing is heavily flawed and noticeable, I feel like it can't even count as a complaint for anything anymore. Especially when the final result is as great as it is. Especially with this. And I did say that I did like Into the Spider-Verse more, but there's some dramatic elements that feel more powerful and leave a bigger impact, because since we already had like this great story already, and then continuing another great story just makes, like I said, the stakes feel higher and more personal, like bringing the story down to like the core relationships. And because of that, by expanding on what's already been done and taking advantage of their positives, they can avoid the negatives and have these questionable dilemmas that you can't just easily solve. And just witnessing that with your eyes and ears just makes it just makes you feel great. Of course, very emotional, but great because of how well it's pulled off. But the other nitpicks that I can mention before getting to the spoiler segment, this was a personal thing, but I wish Ben Reilly / the Scarlet Spider got more to do, because he had a bunch of merchandise. So I was expecting him to do something, but doesn't like really do anything until like the last act. And even though it's just minor stuff, he's basically like just a cameo. And it's a shame. I would have liked to see more of him, but oh well. There's already so much to balance. I'm not sure what else he could have done. And just like with the first one, the animation at times could be a little too flashy, where you kind of do have to kind of look away or close your eyes a bit, or I don't know. I guess maybe others don't have this problem, but it can get so overwhelming that you kind of have to feel like to take yourself a break, even though you don't want to because of how good it is. But yeah, the animation is a little too much at times. And lastly, some scenes go really rapid fire, like characters are talking really fast, things are moving really fast, they don't let you to breathe. So I guess that's why they want you to rewatch it, so you can like look at every detail. But on the first, if someone would have watched this only once and never again, they already get to miss some stuff where like animation frames, some like nice visual flares, or just some words that they'll easily miss out on because it's going so fast. So I feel they could have slowed down a bit. I know they already have this strong energy. But it's like, I guess maybe just tone it just a smidge. And it could have been like even better. But I kind of get why they had to do it the way it was. Anyway, that's all for the non-spoiler segment. I'll give you a few seconds before getting into the spoiler segment. Okay, now to get to spoilers. Even though I knew this, well, many already knew this way before it came out, it was very ambitious to try to make this into a two-part animated story. And since we thought they were going to release 2 years back to back, I was like, oh wow, they were working on these two movies at the same time. But to realize there is a lot more work to be done to Beyond the Spider-Verse. I don't know when this will be a part 1 and part 2 title. So it's going to take a while, possibly another 3 to 5 years for that to come out. Because I knew there was a catch of them announcing there's going to be like 2 movies, like a 2-movie story. And this is what happens. This movie had a cliffhanger. And it ain't going to resolve until like... It ain't going to be like an endgame thing where you get to find out a year later. We'll have to wait a while. So we'll see how patient people can be to wait that long. But if it's worth it, it'll be worth it. The one bit that I just forgot to mention in the other segment is the other side character, Spider-Man 2099, Miguel O'Hara. He's pretty memorable. He's managed to be funny, but also gets this tragic story, which we see only a part of, and we'll get more explored later on. And funny that this Oscar Isaac's third Marvel character, being this, Moon Knight, and Apocalypse, and X-Men Apocalypse. And other people have their own quirks, but they're all memorable. Like, they feel distinct, like Spider-Man Punk. He's hilarious for being like kind of an anarchist rebel. And then with Spider-Man India, who's like this very quirky and fun dude, laid back dude. And because he hasn't faced the Spider-Man tragedy, we get Jessica Drew's Spider-Woman, who isn't a big character, but she's kind of fun, like especially with her dynamic with Gwen. We got a small glimpse of Spider-Bite at the end. There's not much of her, but I guess she'll also get expanded on. Miles' parents are great, and this one gives more attention to his mom, Rio, which got a flip on the focus on his dad in the last one. And also we get to see a whole lot of Gwen Stacy's father, which adds to her drama and her arc and her payoff that she gets later on with she reconciliates with him. This doesn't really do much with like the characters from the last one, like Spider-Ham, Noir, and Penny Parker, except for the very end when it seems like they're going to do a massive rescue party for Miles. Of course, there's going to be a lot of Easter eggs with the kind of movie you expect this, since they're all Spider-Man fans that work on this, which is great. And also, since the multiverse, it has a lot of fan service cameos. You get like the PlayStation 4 Spider-Man, you get the Spectacular Spider-Man, even a bit from the 60s Spider-Man. There's some I'm surprised it didn't add, like the Japanese one. And also the weird live-action TV show. Also funny that they managed to sneak in like a Donald Glover's Prowler from Spider-Man Homecoming. Even it has a couple references to like MCU Spider-Man with Miguel and Gwen referencing Doctor Strange and that universe's Peter Parker. Also funny enough, I think they might be the first Spider-Man story without a real Peter Parker character playing a big role. Because of course you have Peter B, he's not the same. And of course you have Spider-Men that look like the main Spider-Man, but they're not the focus. So you kind of, aside from a bits of Peter B, this doesn't have any Peter Parker playing a big role in the story, which is very new and bold. But since these characters are this good, there's nothing really to complain about. And what's impressive about those fan service bits is that, of course, they don't need to be there, but also don't take away anything from existing. It's just extra flavors of fun. And speaking of drama, I really like how Miguel made such a big deal out of Miles supposed to be an anomaly, because we find out that the spider that bit him was from another universe. So it seems like he wasn't supposed to be Spider-Man. He was supposed to go to another universe, but of course, with that change, small changes can really alter the course of history forever. And yeah, like the big cliffhanger is that when Miles has that big chase scene to escape from the whole society to make it back to his universe, he finds out he ends up in another universe, which is surprise. The one where the spider came from, ends up meeting a place. Finds a place where his dad died, and his uncle is alive. Spider-Man never existed in that universe, and it seems like the other Miles, played by Jerome, good job, man, is basically Prowler's assistant, apprentice, sidekick, something, and he seems like a bad dude with dreads. So we'll find out what his story will be in the last installment, because man, this has the potential to be one hell of a banger trilogy for this generation if they stick the landing. I have the faith they will, but we'll see how it goes, because man, this is impressive. Because I kind of saw coming by the very end that he ended up in another universe and that he's gonna meet an alternate bad Miles, but the payoff is just so strong. And with the animation and the lighting, the music, everything just adds to the suspense, and you kind of don't want it to end, really don't. That's how cliffhangers are. They end it when you don't want them to, which can either piss you off or make you excited, but also that depends if the payoff is strong. So who knows when Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse will come out. Anything can happen in this crazy world. Also, the disadvantage of the strikes that has happened and anything else, the way animation takes. We'll see how it goes. Wow. Well, for this movie, for now, because who knows, my thoughts could change again. But for now, I give this a 93 out of 100. Yeah, baby. There's so much more that could have been said. It stretched on into an hour, but with these reviews, I'm just giving you the bits and pieces. And this ain't a discussion, it's just giving my thoughts as well. And these are really my honest thoughts. I just really like this movie. Others doesn't make me unique, but hey, it's fine to be part of a community. But it's also just as fine to be having an unpopular opinion on something, or you like something more than others, or the opposite. But hey, I wouldn't trade this movie for anything else. I'm glad they exist. These movies are just way better than anyone imagined to be, and we're all hopefully grateful. People should be grateful, because these are really once in a lifetime. And as with the theme is, maybe there's universes where these movies don't exist. So we'll see. What we will see is what we get. Something pretty epic. And that is all, you guys. See you all on to the next one, because for sure there ain't going to be a review for a while. I can take a break, and I can continue living my life. Hopefully all of you will live your lives too. See you all on the next one. Again, let's go across. Lacrosse.